ONE FC's 165 has come to an end. It was Superlek versus Takeru. Superlek got the victory via a unanimous decision over Takeru. I made a breakdown video not too long ago, just a couple of days ago, where I had it kind of 51-49 either man, but I did lean towards Takeru winning. But it ended up being a masterclass of striking by Superlek, and Takeru showed a warrior's heart, a battle between a Muay Thai master versus a Japanese kickboxing phenom. And even though it did not go the way I thought it would go, it was a fantastic fight. It was a phenomenal fight between two extremely high-level kickboxers, and I wanted to give my reaction to this fight, starting with, so of course Superlek does win by unanimous decision. Takeru comes forward, but he isn't able to get much going. So when I broke this fight down, my kind of how I felt each man should go about it, I thought Takeru needs to focus on closing the distance. He needs to get in the face of Superlek. He can't let Superlek have some distance, and he needs to go crazy with the boxing exchanges. And for Superlek, I said he needs to create that distance, focus on his leg kicks, focus on his head kicks, roundhouse kicks, all of that. And Superlek did what he had to do phenomenally. I mean, he put on a leg kick masterclass. Takeru was unable to check any of the leg kicks of Superlek, and by the end of the first round, he had a huge red mark on his lead leg, and you saw it by the end of round 2. He was limping. I mean, it wasn't like a very obvious limp, like he could barely stand, but he has, an incredible heart, but also he has the body of a Kyokushin karate black belt. He has a black belt in Kyokushin karate. If you know anything about Kyokushin, you know that these guys have some of the craziest body conditioning you'll ever see. And because of that, this guy, even though he took as many leg kicks as he did, half of those would have put down a normal man. They would have put down an elephant even. But Takeru at 50 he ate 50 leg kicks or so, and he kept coming. So a phenomenal showing of conditioning, but also heart from Takeru. But man, Superlek was going wild with those leg kicks. He was throwing a lot of combinations as well. So one thing that really impressed me with Superlek was that he wasn't just going leg kick, which he was, but he would also do 1-2 leg kick, 1-2-1 leg kick. I mean, those combinations were catching Takeru off guard as well. And he was also throwing a lot of teeps to the body, which I said Takeru should utilize. Takeru was doing less of those. Superlek was doing those to create distance. So fantastic by Superlek. Takeru, I guess he just didn't want to. He didn't implement it as much. He did it a couple of times, but Superlek was definitely the guy using it more often, and he even caught Takeru off balance a couple of times with those. But with that being said, even though this was a unanimous decision, I think it was 4-1 Superlek. The third round was Takeru's big round where he froze, according to Superlek himself. Takeru froze him. He had him up against the ropes, and Takeru went on a boxing flurry, combinations to the head, body, and he was going wild. And you could see for Superlek when he was frozen, he was kind of like, I need to protect my liver, but my chin is now open, I need to protect my head. It was all these thoughts going through his head. And for Takeru, he did what he had to do to secure the round. But I'm sure for Takeru, it was a bit disheartening to kind of do what you do so well, and that helps you win so much at K1 against the highest level kickboxers, and he could not get Superlek down, and he kept coming back for more. So I know for Takeru, it must have been like, I just put my heart out there, and unfortunately, he could not get the guy down, and that must have been for Takeru kind of like, well, now what? This is my big moment. I took advantage of it. Takeru did everything he could have. One thing I will say about Takeru, and he should have done this more often in the fight, but especially during the flurry, was when Superlek was, bending down so much. I don't know why he just doesn't throw the knee up the middle. Superlek, if there's one kind of weakness I'm seeing from him, he does have a habit of leaning down so much just in general, where a well-timed knee up the middle could, make a huge difference in the fight. But again, it needs to be said, and I'll mention this later, but Takeru was preparing for Rotting, and Rotting is a completely different fight than Superlek. Rotting is, like Takeru, comes forward, likes to fight in the pocket, likes to brawl. Superlek is much more technical, and we saw this tonight with a technical kickboxing masterclass from Superlek. And again, the story of this will kind of be Takeru showed great heart, Superlek showed great skill. One thing, Takeru needed to be more aggressive from the start. He had a very slow start in the first round where he got absolutely pieced up with leg kicks. He was barely checking any of them, and the tone of the fight was set early on. Again, Superlek isn't a counter striker. He doesn't seem to bode very well on the counter striking. It's not his forte. Takeru's goal, and I'm sure he wanted to, but those leg kicks, when he ate even one or two or a couple of them, he was probably going, man, these hurt, and that must have probably stumped him a bit. But his goal should have been to get as close as possible and to just focus on getting something out there. He would come close to Superlek, eat a leg kick. Superlek would bounce out. He would hit a combination and bounce out again. For Takeru, I was really surprised that he wasn't going in there, jab, 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 get close, maybe eat a leg kick or two, keep trying to get his combinations going. Because you saw, when he did finally get his moment, he froze Superlek. In the third round, Superlek said it himself. He could have done that in other moments of the fight, and he could have potentially won. He could have gotten himself that victory, but shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Like, I say that, but maybe it wasn't as easy when you're standing in front of a Thai kickboxing machine. It must have been completely different. What's next? I mean, for Takeru, you got to think about this now. He's now on a 2-fight losing streak. His last fight was in the Ryzen K1 mixture against Tenshin Nasukawa and now Superlek. But it needs to be said, he's losing to Tenshin Nasukawa and Superlek. He's losing to the pound-for-pound best kickboxers in the world. Tenshin is no longer kickboxing. He's now purely boxing. But Superlek is arguably one of the best kickboxers in the world. Not even arguably. He's probably the best. And he's not losing to nobodies. And he's putting on great performances along the way. Like, he had Superlek, pretty hurt in that flurry. And with Tenshin, it was a competitive fight. But you gotta start thinking about where Takeru as a competitor stands, where he's now on a 2-fight losing streak after going, I don't know how long undefeated. He was so undefeated, so long. He went so long as an undefeated champ in K1. I mean, you look at Kamaru Usman in the UFC, right? He went on this undefeated streak for like 10 or however many fights, and then he gets KO'd by Edwards. He loses to Edwards again, then he loses to Chimaev, and he does an interview backstage with, I think, Megan O'Leary, where he's pretty emotional, like he's doubting himself for the first time. And you got to think about where Takeru stands also, because you go from being this undefeated champ to now on a 2-fight losing streak. Everybody will tell him, I'll say it as well, you lost to 2 of the best in the world. But for Takeru, it's like, if I lost to the best in the world, that means I'm not the best. So I do kind of worry about that. I wanted to rebook the Raw Tank Takeru fight, but now after I thought about it, I think maybe Takeru should take a layup fight. But he's got that like Japanese samurai warrior spirit. He's not gonna take a layup. I think he'll go for the Raw Tank rebooking, which I do think stylistically is a better matchup for Takeru. But who are we kidding? Raw Tank is a difficult match for anybody. I mean, he arguably, in a lot of fans' eyes, he beat Superlek. So. But again, styles do make fights. Rating is probably the best pure brawler, even though I love Takeru's brawling style. I think Takeru's a bit more technical than Rating, but Rating's just a better pure brawler. And I do worry about that fight because Takeru does get clipped a lot, and he has a great chin. But Rating has probably the best chin out there. And when it comes for pure power to power, I do think Rating also kind of edges out over there. So I would love to see that fight for Takeru next, but at the same time, I would not mind it if my favorite fighter took a layup fight, because I kind of want him to. It would really hurt to see Takeru on a 3-fight losing streak, especially when we all know how good he is. But he has to make some adjustments. I mentioned this in my breakdown. He has some defensive holes, and we saw this tonight with his leg kick defense. He doesn't really check leg kicks very well. So again, he took this fight on short notice, a completely different stylistic matchup. Superlek did as well, so that's even more impressive for Superlek, right? He took this on short notice, beat one of the best kickboxers in the world. For Takeru, though, it really was a completely different stylistic matchup. And I mentioned the knees up the middle. Maybe if he was originally training for Superlek, he would have gotten the opportunity to drill those more. But who knows? This is all assumptions. Maybe the fight would have gone the same way. Maybe it would have gone worse. Why? I have no idea of knowing for sure. But this was a great fight overall. Superlek looked fantastic. I'm sure all the Thai fans around the world are extremely happy, and I'm sure all the Japanese fans are in Japan. This fight happened in Japan. I'm sure all the Japanese fans are incredibly proud of what Takeru was able to do tonight, and I know the Thai fans are very proud as well of Superlek. But great performance from Superlek, great fight overall, and really competitive. Can't wait to see both men back in the ring again. So tell me what you guys think. Were you surprised by anything? Did it go as you expected? Who did you have winning the fight? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.